Our next guest this morning is still regarded as the most famous white woman in South Africa. She was born as Evangeline Puchumpool of the humble Boer Orangers in the dusty Orange Free State town of Bethlehem on the 28th of September, 1935. She was presented with the Living Legacy Award 2000 in San Diego in 2001. Now, this same award in the past has been given to legends that include Hillary Clinton, Betty Davis, Princess Diana, and Margaret Thatcher. So please, without any further ado, please welcome South Africa's much-loved icon, inspirational, transformational, funny, glamorous, topical, typically South African, the optimistic and hopeful Evita Bezuidenhout.
Thank you, baie dankie, liewe aarde. When I hear people talk about that woman, I think, who is she? Getting a Living Legacy Award in America that was given to all those other people who are all nearly dead, except for Hillary Clinton, because she's going to go on for a long time. All I can say now is, Sayabona, Dumela, Molo, Kunjane, hello. And to our special guests from Saxon World, Salam. I am always excited when I hear people talk about Women's Day, because Women's Day is on the 9th of August. And then I think to myself, why only the 9th of August? Every day is Women's Day. And on Monday we've got Youth Day, the 16th of June. Why is it only on one day? Why is every day not Youth Day? Every day should be Mother's Day. Every day should be Freedom Day. And every day should be Reconciliation Day. And that is the most exciting thing about being in a democracy that is now 20 years old. My liewe aarde mense, our voice is broken. Well, everything else is broken, but our voice has broken. South Africa has now grown up. And I don't think we can look back and blame the past for everything that goes wrong in the present. I said this to somebody the other day, why do we always blame apartheid for everything today after 20 years? It's like in the 1960s blaming Adolf Hitler for the miniskirt. And so one of the things that I have always found inspiring and exciting is the fact that in a healthy democracy, the people will lead and the government can follow. I've always been involved with politics. In fact, I think most of the South Africans today have had me in their lives for the last 30 years. First, of course, not as a famous South African. I was just the wife of a politician, my husband, Oom Hasie, Dr. Yeye de Vier Bezuidenhout. He was a member of parliament for the National Party for Lagerfontein. And of course, as his wife, I was involved with all the intrigues of parliament, but always 3 steps behind him, because that was a very Afrikaans thing as well. The wife was 3 steps behind, but always 4 words ahead. And I always loved being in Parliament because it was an exciting place to be. It was the center of energy. It was the center of looking forward. It was the center of law and order. That's what I thought, of course. When I look back now, I realize that what we called policy during the apartheid government would be called corruption today. And that is why it is important for me not to walk away from politics. I am no longer an ambassador. You might remember that during the 1980s, I was the South African ambassador in the independent black homeland republic of Babeti-Kosweti. In the days when we had many black homelands, we thought that would be the solution. We didn't realize it would become the problem. And then Nelson Mandela came and spoiled everything by taking away all the black homelands and giving us one black homeland called South Africa. And of course, it was a shock, because suddenly I was no longer a member of the diplomatic corps. I was a housewife and a grandmother. And I thought, what can I do to enrich not just the lives of my family, my children, my grandchildren, but also the South Africans who are looking at me for leadership, which is very, very embarrassing because, quite frankly, I don't think I have any qualifications for leadership. However, I do have one very important qualification. I have survived the worst, and I look forward to the best. And so, the first phone call that Nelson Mandela made after he had been inaugurated as President of South Africa on that extraordinary day, the 10th of May 1994, he phoned me from his residence. It was then called Libertas. Of course, I think it's now, what is it called now? Madiba Ungungluvu. And he phoned me and he said, Evita, please help. I'm in this big house and there's a very big room and they call it kitchen and I don't know what to do there. And so I went and I cooked for Nelson Mandela. Do you know how easy it was? For 27 years, all he had was bread and water twice a day. So I just put sugar in the water and jam on the bread, and because he was so excited. And it was very important for me to be in the kitchen to make things work well for South Africa. Do you know that we had a dinner party every night, 7 nights a week? And I was in that kitchen. Kwit mense, ek was in daardie kombuis, ek het gewerk soos 'n ek het gewerk. Of course, I made my bobotie, which became a very, very famous dish among very, very important people. Wonderfully exciting politicians all came to Pretoria to meet Nelson Mandela. They wanted a photograph with Madiba so that the world would also think they were upholders of democracy and human rights. Politicians like Muammar Gaddafi, Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, the Spice Girls, all of them came to Pretoria. And I made them bobotie. And then, of course, I went to Parliament and went into the kitchens of Parliament to try and help the new ANC government come to terms with African cuisine after a lifetime in exile. I put putu-pap with everything. Putu-pap with spaghetti, putu-pap with sushi, putu-pap with the Atkins diet. Dit het gewerk. And then, of course, I started cooking for Thabo Mbeki, which was not easy because he was never here. The food was always cold. And now with President Jacob Zuma and his cluster of wives, I am very careful not to interfere in the kitchen because too many cooks can very much spoil the broth at Nkandla. But I am now a member of the African National Congress, which I know is a strange thing for me to say. And many of my friends have said, "Lieve aarde Tannie Evita, how can you be a member of the ANC? It's like seeing Angela Merkel as a Greek bank manager." And I say to them, "Nee, my magtig. We are in a democracy. I have got freedom of choice. I have chosen to follow the lead of the politics of where we are today. And the politics is no longer centered on Parliament. Parliament has now become a DA parking garage. Power is in Luthuli House. And I must say, I've been there for nearly a year. I'm very, very quiet. Look, I do not want to make statements or even speak as a member of the ANC. I'm here purely talking in a personal capacity. But the wonderful thing that I have discovered working in close conjunction with so many extraordinary people is how many good people are in Luthuli House. How many good people are in the African National Congress. I'm so used to seeing the front page of newspapers about people who steal and lie and enrich themselves. And yes, most of South Africa thinks that represents the majority of our leadership. That doesn't. The one thing that I really try to share with my grandchildren, especially my grandchildren, and the women I know, is to say to them, "My magtig, let us focus on what is good and not ignore what is bad." But those politicians that are doing their job, we must get their cell phone numbers and phone them in the afternoon and just say, "We are watching you. We like what you do. Keep on doing it." And those politicians that are not doing their job, get their cell phone numbers and phone them at 3 o'clock in the morning for the next 5 years. Hou die donders wakker. Keep them awake. Because if we do not rattle the cage, the lion will fall asleep. Of course, it is interesting meeting up with some very famous politicians. One of my most exciting moments, every time I see her, is to actually meet Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who is a remarkable South African. And again, we have so much prejudice because of fear that we always misinterpret so many things. She has done some extraordinary things for South Africa. And she's really, I think, a very important leader when she takes her medication. When she doesn't, she can make trouble. 2 years ago, she put her arms around Julius Malema, and she said very loudly that this is the new Mandela. Onthou julle? And of course, Julius Malema very cleverly picked up on that, and he said, "Yes, I am the new Nelson Mandela." In future, you will treat me like you treated Nelson Mandela. And I thought, ja, nie vragtig, let's start with 27 years in jail. President Jacob Zuma is also an interesting person. Again, I fought my prejudice, this terrible prejudice that most South Africans have, because we don't do our homework, we don't read those very thick books. We all have Nelson Mandela's book, The Long Walk to Houghton. We've got that. We've also got the Bible. Have we read any of those? Did anybody read Thabo Mbeki's book, The Dream Deferred? I don't think so. I think we are not doing our jobs as Democrats because we have homework, and that homework means find out who is in charge. Thabo Mbeki was our president for nearly 8 years. For nearly 8 years, he decided on pensions, on the security of the state, of the education of the children. And I would say that most South Africans have never bothered to find out where that passion for leadership came from. Where did the passion start, and where did it go into corruption? And unfortunately, in so many cases, laziness and egocentricity and all the things that we use on the front page of newspapers. And I have found out why Thabo Mbeki was not happy as president of South Africa, because he was never here. I kept on thinking, why is he never here? We in the apartheid government did a terrible thing to Thabo Mbeki. We never put him in jail. I mean, how terrible. No wonder he was so disadvantaged. Everybody in the ANC was in jail, following Nelson Mandela's example, and that example was so clear that politicians now first go to jail and then go into politics, and not the other way around. Ne? Niemand het dit vir Ellen Boesak gesê nie, Zamnar, ne? And as a result, Thabo Mbeki was in exile for over 30 years. Can you imagine sending a young South African out of his country because of his political beliefs? And I am so relieved that we are no longer in a space where people can be penalized for thought, that people can be penalized for opinions. We have got freedom, I suppose the freedom to make fools of ourselves as well. And because I am now a grandmother, I've got 3 beautiful little grandchildren. I think some of you probably didn't read the latest Huisgenoot magazine. I've got 3 black grandchildren. Goed, nou sit julle hier wit geskrik. Wat's verkeerd met julle? My daughter, Billy Jean, married the son of the former president of my homeland, of Babeti Kosweti. She married Leroy Makulweri. Goed, daar gaan my tand, wag 'n bietjie. Ooh, die kosa kliks gaan my nog haasbek maak. She married Leroy Makulweli, and they gave me 3 of the most beautiful grandchildren who inspire me with their demands for the future. They don't look back. They're too young. They're born free. They will go forward believing that democracy has always been here. And as we know, it has not always been here. And I think one thing that women specifically must do is to talk about where we come from so we can celebrate where we are going. Apartheid will never ever come back again under the same name. But do not underestimate the inventiveness of bad politics. Of course it'll be back. It made money for a political elite then. It'll make money for a political elite now. It won't be the segregation of color. We've done that. We've got that T-shirt. It might be the segregation of language, of tradition, of education, or here in Gauteng, the segregation of toll gates. We must not be asleep and let things vanish. Freedom is so fragile, it gets eaten by politicians and they replace it with something that doesn't work. And I can only say that because I come from the background of taking the freedom to destroy freedom for granted. It is an exciting place to be. I'm glad you are here on this very, very cold day. I must go back to Luthuli House. I must cook some nice hot soup for President Zuma. He's coming back to have his photograph taken before he goes back to Nkandla to rest. He can't, I don't think he can swim in his fire reservoir at the moment because it is a little bit cold. But he is very, very tired. I hope it's just tired. I hope they're not actually giving him the Shabby Sheikh syndrome, that he retires for health reasons with full amnesty. Maar ja, iets is moontlik. Because there are good people standing in the wings. We are the good people standing on the stage. We are people in the democracy called South Africa. And we as women have got the greatest advantage above all. Because with us, where we are, anything is possible. And for us, not to be there means nothing can happen. And especially if you're a grandparent. As a grandparent, I say to all grandparents, we grandparents can gang up with our grandchildren against their parents. Because we all know how difficult it was as children to talk to our parents, and how impossible it is as parents to talk to our children. But if a grandparent can just say, what is the problem? A grandparent, the audition is over. We don't have to prove anything. Ons is te donders oud daarvoor, né? You can even have, well, as somebody said, have a zol with your grandchild. I wouldn't go that far. But the point is, let them talk out their problems to you. You won't understand a word they're saying. But at least they are talking out, and they will listen to what they said, and they might even find a solution. If we do not talk to our children, somebody else will talk to our children, and we will lose our children. I wish you an exciting day. I wish all the speakers an exciting experience. And as a proud South African, I look forward to the 9th of August when I can stand up with all the women in South Africa and say, today is my day, tomorrow, thanks to us, will be yours. Baie dankie.